scheduled to do this last week, but had a slight mishap in that I thought I had saved it in my flash drive and went across the road to get it printed because I had sent my computer to a repair shop and to find out that for some reason it couldn't print. The guy told me the drivers that I needed weren't there, and I couldn't find the CD with the drivers on short notice, so I thought I had saved it, and then Windows came and uploaded a new version of Windows that apparently didn't have the drivers, and so when I got here I found out I didn't save it. But it was home, so here am I today. Brethren, recently I saw a pastor who started his sermon with some feedback he received from a couple, members of his church, who from the photos he posted were now in their 70s. And they wrote, "We hope heaven is a real place. The older we get, the more we long for it. We just hope that what we were taught in our childhood is true." Now, but clearly as adults, they never bothered to take the time to investigate and prove what they were taught, whether it's true or not. And now that they were coming to the end of their lives, they began to have a desire to experience this heaven that they were taught as children. Perhaps they were retired and not having too much to do at this point. They began to think about the future, but now they were unsure about the truth of what they were taught. And I thought, brethren, how sad. People who were taught something or indoctrinated with what was purported to be the truth from childhood are uncertain now at the end of their lives of the reality of what they merely passively accepted apparently. And I thought that was really sad. But what about us, brother? What about you? Are you uncertain about what will happen to you after you die? Are you also uncertain about the kingdom of God? Is it going to be something real or something in your heart? As some people say, the kingdom of God is in your heart. Today, brethren, we will take a hard look at the promises of God, as stated in the scriptures in your Bible, rather than rely on the fiction about heaven that so many people believe. And if you want a topic, brethren, a title, it's the promises of God. Even sadder, I thought. The preacher assured the couple that heaven was a real place. And he proceeded to give them a smorgasbord of what he thought were facts, or what he portrayed as facts about heaven. But regrettably, what he said to this couple about heaven will leave them crushed, because very little of what he said was actually true. He offered a mishmash of more invented ideas, fantasies, fables, and corrupted biblical interpretation. He took prophecies about what the millennium will look like and applied them to heaven. For example, he took the scripture in Isaiah chapter 65, verse 21 and 23, and applied that to those who will receive eternal life. And let's just turn there and see what Isaiah 65 says. Isaiah 65 and verses 21 to 23. It says in verse 21, and they shall build houses and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. They shall not build and another inhabit. They shall not plant and another eat. For as the days of a tree are the days of my people. Mine elect shall long enjoy the work of their hands. So to him, that was heaven. He talked about building 2 houses, 2 homes, one in the city and one in the country, referring to the New Jerusalem. And he said that, maybe you can't build, but there are going to be lots of architects there who can design who's going to build it. How are you going to pay for it? Because you're not going to be working, you're going to be a gentleman farmer. He even got the dimensions of the New Jerusalem wrong. The Bible said this is a perfect square, and it gives you one side which is 1,500 miles. And if it tells you each side is the same, then it only needs to give you one side. But he divided that 1,500 by 4, and ended up with 375. And that was the side, which is not a particularly big space. For the hundreds of billions of angels, they said, who are in heaven, about 440,000 square miles. It's not a pretty big place. That's one of the size of the medium-sized states in the U.S. He also talked about Christ being a veritable tourist guide, personally showing believers the most exciting sights in the city. And he even got into some silliness about your taste buds being restored to the perfection that they were originally imbued with, so that with your heightened taste, you could enjoy to the full the magnificent fruits that you would plant in your garden. Not to mention the aroma of the flowers, the fantastic flowers that you would be growing. He talked about swapping stories with Moses and Adam, and Elijah, Peter and Paul and Daniel, about their experiences way back when. He talked about tame lions in heaven, again, mixing up the millennium with heaven. And how your wives or your husbands would look so great without a wrinkle on their faces, because they would have a perfect body like the one Christ had when he was resurrected. I suppose your body is going to have what this was the hyaluronic acid, but they pat on their faces and show you how good you can look. He seemingly didn't know, or chose to ignore the scripture that says, flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. And the one that says that those who are counted worthy to inherit eternal life neither marry nor are given in marriage, which you can find in Mark 12, verse 25. And the one that says death annuls all marriages. Let's take a read of that in Romans chapter 7. So whether you were married or not, death annuls all of them. Romans 7, chapter 1, he says, know ye not, brethren, I speak to them who know the law, how that the law has dominion over a man or person as long as he lives. For the woman who has a husband is bound by the law to her husband so long as he lives. But if the husband be dead, she is loosed from the law of her husband. So then, while her husband lives, and she be married to another man, she shall be called an adulteress. But if her husband is dead, she is free from that law, so that she is no adulteress, though she be married to another man. So he was telling that you will see a husband and wife and get married again, whatever. And of course the one in 1 Corinthians 15, that said we should have a spiritual body and bear the image of the heavenly. So brethren, let's take a hard look now at what the Bible says, what God is really promising us, and not have to wonder at that point in our lives when we may be that close to departing this life and wonder if what we heard is actually real or true. Let's start in John chapter 1. John chapter 1, and let's read verse 12. I'd like you to read this with your own eyes so you don't have to wonder. It says, and as many as received him, Christ, to them he gave the power or the right to become the sons of God, or the children of God, even to them who believe on his name. So you believe on him now, he's giving you the power, the privilege, the right to become children of God. Now what does it mean to be the children of God? What does that really mean? You know, like a friend of mine said, we will be children of God, yes, but we won't have immortality, we won't have perfection, we won't have holiness, we're not going to be omnipotent and omnipresent. Really? That's what he knows of as a consequence of being a member of one of these churches, popular Christianity. First of all, let's see what we will really look like. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 15. We've read this before, but I want you to focus on it now and put yourself in questioning, is this something I really believe? Is this something I am really looking for? Or is it like the people you heard it for however so long? But when, as they said, when it came to the point in time when life may not have too much else for you, you begin to wonder. 1 Corinthians 15. And let's go from verse 38. Now breaking into a thought here, Paul is speaking about the resurrection. It says, but God gives it, referring now to a seed, a plant, seed or grain. God gives plants or grain a body as it pleases him. And to every seed, he gives its own distinctive body. And then he moves now to demonstrate how that applies to the human body. All flesh is not the same, in the same way all seeds are not the same. There's one flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, animals, another of fishes, another of birds. There are also celestial bodies and terrestrial bodies. But the glory of the celestial is one, meaning the stars now. The stars shine, they give off heat and radiation, etc. And the glory of the celestial, like the moon or the earth, is another. If you look in space, you will see the moon, but the moon doesn't give off the kind of light that the stars do. Neither does the moon, even though it does reflect light. But the stars produce their own light. The moon doesn't, it simply reflects the light. likewise our earth. So he says, there is one glory of the sun and another glory of the moon, because the moon reflects the glory of the sun. And another glory of the stars, because there are stars that are thousands of times brighter than our sun. For one star differs from another in glory. And why is he saying all this? So also is the resurrection of the dead. So he's using tangible things that people can see to make the point about the resurrection of the dead. It is sown, our bodies. The body when it's dead, it is sown in corruption. But it is raised in corruption. It is a different body when it is raised. It is sown in dishonor. People throw dirt on you. Your body begins to almost to smell badly, begins to rot. They'll put you on ice or embalming. Said it is sown. When you put it in the grave, it's sown in dishonor. But it is raised in glory, a totally different body when it's raised. It is sown in weakness. Not just the weakness that you have in life, but the body that you put in the grave can't move, can't do anything. It is raised in power. It is sown a natural body, flesh. It is raised a spiritual body. There is a natural body and there is a spiritual body. And you see how he takes the pains to explain that, the difference that is going to be. And so it is written, the first man, Adam, was made a living soul, made flesh and blood. The last Adam, Christ, was made a quickening spirit. Howbeit that was not first which is spiritual, but that which is natural. We are now physical, we are flesh and blood. And afterwards, after death, or when Christ returns, that which is spiritual. The first man is of the earth. He was made from the elements in the soil. God said, as I said, God made man out of the dust of the ground. He didn't make him of dust. God called the elements of the soil dust, because it's tiny, tiny particles of things that you have. So God called it dust. The second man is the Lord from heaven. As is the earthy, such are they that are earthy. We are earthy. The children we produce are earthy likewise. Junior is earthy. His kids are earthy. And Paul is now making the difference. As is the heavenly, the Father is heavenly. He is a spirit being. So are they who are heavenly. And what did John tell us? He gave us the power, the privilege to become the children of God. And as we have borne the image of the earthy, we look like this, we shall bear the image of the heavenly. But what exactly is the image of the heavenly? Well, brethren, let's go and take a look. Let's take a look and see if you agree with what one of the Jameson, Fawcett, and Brown said about God with Moses. Let's go to Exodus 19. We're doing a fair amount of reading here. I want you to see it with your own eyes, so you're not surprised or you don't know. Let's go read. Exodus 19. Let's go from verse 9. Now this was when the Israelites came out of Egypt and God was about to make the covenant with them. He said, and the Lord said to Moses, Lo, I come unto you in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with you, and believe you forever. Let's drop down to verse 16. And it came to pass on the third day in the morning that there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud upon the mountain, and the voice of the trumpet exceeding loud, so that the people, all the people that was in the camp, trembled. And Moses brought forth the people out of the camp to meet with God. And they stood at the bottom part of the mountain. And the smoke on Mount Sinai was altogether with smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire. That is natural appearance now. Not hiding anything. He came down in the thick cloud on the mountain, and he is a fiery appearance. And the smoke thereof ascended above the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly, and shook like an earthquake. And when the voice of the trumpet sounded loud and waxed louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him by a voice. And it says, and the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai on the top of the mountain, and called unto Moses, called him up to the top of the mountain, and Moses went. And the Lord said to Moses, go down and warn the people, lest they break through, or they exceed the boundary, through to the Lord to gaze, and many of them perish. Because, brethren, God is a consuming fire. You can't look at God with your naked eyes, or with any form. If you look at God, it will kill you from that distance. So you have to warn them, don't attempt to do it, because if you do it, you're going to die. Let's turn over to chapter 24, because this was a unique experience. God interacted with Moses and the Israelites in such close range. Never happened before to our people. Hasn't happened, never happened since. Chapter 24 and verse 9. Verse 8 it says, Moses took the blood and sprinkled it upon the people and said, behold the blood of the covenant which the Lord has made with you concerning all these things. And verse 9. Then went up Moses, Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, Aaron's sons, and 70 of the elders of Israel. And they saw the God of Israel. And there was under his feet, as it were, a paved work of a sapphire stone, and as it were, the body of heaven in his clearness. And let's drop down to verse 15. It says, and Moses went up into the mount, and a cloud covered the mount. And the glory of the Lord abode upon the Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And the seventh day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud. Verse 17. And the sight of the glory of the Lord was like devouring fire. That's a sight. Devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. That, brethren, is the image of the heavenly. And let's turn forward. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 6. Isaiah chapter 6. Let's see what this image of the heavenly looks like. In the year, chapter 6 verse 1, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. And if you drop down to verse 4, and the posts of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Because God, brethren, is fire, as the scripture says. And let's go forward. Ezekiel chapter 1. Ezekiel chapter 1. So that you don't have to wonder, brother, whether God is real or what does God look like. Ezekiel chapter 1, let's go to verse 26. Speaking now, starting with the beings that draw God's throne. And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone. Where did we see that appearance of a sapphire stone before? And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above it. Verse 27. And I saw as the color of amber and yellowish, as the appearance of fire round about within it, from the appearance of his loins even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downward. I saw as it were the appearance of fire, and it had brightness around, as the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain. So was the appearance of the brightness around about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard the voice of one that spoke. This is the image of the heavenly brethren. Let's continue. Chapter 10. Chapter 10, verse 1. And I looked, and behold, in the firmament that was above the head of the cherubims, there appeared over them, as it were, a sapphire stone. No, sapphire stone again. As the appearance of the likeness of the throne. And let's drop down to verse 4. Then the glory of the Lord went up from the cherub and stood over the threshold of the house. And the house was filled with the cloud, and the court was filled of the brightness of the Lord's glory. And let's drop down to verse. You can read the rest of the chapter, brother. It gives you some more detail, but we won't take time with that. Let's drop down to verse 19. It says, and the cherubims lifted up their wings and mounted up from the earth to the side. They began to fly, in other words. When they went out, the wheels also were beside them. And everyone stood at the door of the east of the gate of the Lord's house. And the glory of the God of Israel was over them, meaning the brightness that he mentioned. And let's go back to the New Testament and see the references there. Revelation chapter 1. Revelation chapter 1. And let's read verses 13 to 17. Verse 12 says, and I turned to see the voice that spoke with me, and being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, or Jesus Christ, clothed with a garment down to the foot. He's giving you more details now. Ezekiel and Moses, etc., they were probably too scared, but now it was a real life thing they were seeing in the case of Moses, so probably kept his head down a bit. This is a vision, and so John has the time to see and take in more details. Clothed with a garment down to the feet, and girt about the paps, or the chest with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his white were as a flame of fire. Now it doesn't literally mean that his hair was white, but because of the brightness of the light that is around him, it appears as though it were white. But the actual color of his hair, we're not sure. But the brightness is what we see here. It looks that way. As white as snow. And his eyes were like a flame of fire. All this, brethren, remember, this is the image of the heavenly that Paul is telling us we will bear. So don't take this as an abstract thing. Paul is telling you this is what you are going to look like when you are born of the heavenly. And his feet like unto fine brass, polished brass, as if they burned in a furnace. And maybe you can go on YouTube and see if you find a video and see what brass looks like when they melt it in a furnace. See what that color looks like. And his voice as the sound of many waters. And he had in his right hand 7 stars. And out of his mouth went a sharp two-edged sword. And note, and his countenance, his face, was as the sun shines in his strength. What does the sun look like when you look up at it, brother? What color do you see? His hairs are white like wool. When you look up at the sun, doesn't it look kind of white? That is what he's referring to, brother. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as though I were dead. It's a scary thing. And he laid his right hand upon me, saying, don't be afraid. I am the first and the last. And let's go into chapter 2. Revelation chapter 2 and verse 18. And unto the angel of the church in Thyatira, write, these things says the Son of God, who has eyes like unto a flame of fire, and his feet are like fine brass. So John is repeating it now. And let's go to chapter 4. Let's go from verse 2. It says, and immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he that sat, and getting more details now, brother, he that sat on this throne was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone. And maybe you could go to YouTube or do Google it and see what these stones look like. And there was a rainbow around the throne, in sight like unto an emerald. Image of the heavenly realm. And let's go back to Matthew. Matthew chapter 13. Matthew chapter 13. And let's read verse 43. Talking about you, brother, you and I. Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. And note what he added. Who has ears to hear, let him hear. So, brother, this isn't some figurative thing. This is why he said, if you have ears to hear, hear it. Because the righteous will shine like the sun. And what did we see in Revelation? His face shone, his countenance was as the sun in its bright, and as if you were to see the sun on a low cloud in the sky. And these, brethren, in my Bible, this is a red letter word, so it means that these are the direct words of Christ. Christ is saying, They shall shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of the Father. You who are heirs to hear, let him hear. In other words, I am telling you this, so make sure it doesn't go through here and come over here. And let's turn forward to chapter 17. Let's read verse 1. It says, and after 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John, his brother, and brought them up into a high mountain, separate from their people, and was transfigured before them. And his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment, his clothing, was white as light. These, brethren, are some of the physical characteristics of God as seen by those who wrote of the experience. So this is the image of the heavenly. And Paul is telling us we will bear that image. Is that really enough for you, brethren? You know, are there any fuzzy pictures in your head? I mean, even the Jameson Fawcett Brown, what's the name of the use of it? Not the concordance, I remember the name, but they're attempting to give an explanation, and they said not that there was a real image, it was a kind of a vague kind of thing. It seemed like that to Moses. That's what they wrote. But all the scriptures we've read, brethren, ain't telling you it looked like no vague thing. It tell you about his feet, tell you about his hand, tell you about his eyes, his head, his torso. How could that be vague? And it tells you what they look like. So even they who wrote this, the Jamestown Fawcett book, even they themselves can't seemingly accept that this is what it is. For them, it has to be a vague thing that you can't, this is not what the Bible is telling you. They're giving you distinct colors, and they're giving you what his body looks like. And Christ himself, when he got transfigured, he didn't disappear. He was right there. And that, brethren, is the image that Paul is telling us we will have. Flesh and blood bodies cannot inherit the kingdom of God. Speaking now about becoming a member of the God family. And why? Because the God family are spirit beings. And that is what the category of spirit beings, the God family category, looks like. And it says we shall be changed to look like the Father and Christ, because we are members of the same family. Isaiah 33:14, you can just make a note of it. It says here, the sinners in Zion are afraid. Fearfulness has surprised the hypocrites. Who amongst us shall dwell with the devouring fire? Women say God is a devouring fire. Who amongst us will dwell with the devouring fire? Who amongst us shall dwell with everlasting burning? And verse 15 answers, he who walks righteously and speaks uprightly. He who despises the gain of oppression, who shakes his hands from holding bribes, tosses them away, and stops his ears from hearing of blood, and shuts his eyes from seeing. As children of God, brethren, we will inherit all of the attributes that God possesses. And that includes His righteousness. We will bear the image of the heavenly. Righteousness is the image of the heavenly. Holiness, His incorruptible nature, His immortality, omnipotence, omniscience, omnipresence. That is part of the image we will bear when Christ returns. Revelation 21:7, it tells us, he that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. All things. These are the things that belong to God, not just the material universe. And let's go back to Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8. And let's read from verse 14. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. John 1:12 tells us He has given us the right, the privilege to become the sons of God. Romans is telling us as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. I'm going to read this from the New Living Translation. It says, for those of you who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God. The Spirit you receive does not make you slaves, so that you live in fear again. Rather, the Spirit you received brought about, it says your adoption, I will leave out your adoption, it brought about your sonship. And by this sonship, we now cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit that leads us testifies with our spirit, two spirits unshaking, that we are God's children. Now if we are children of God, then are we heirs, heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ, if indeed we share in His sufferings, in order that we may also share in His glory. And verse 18, for I consider that our present sufferings, whatever we go through now in this life, are not worthy comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. And when you hear glory, go back and read what the appearance of God was like on the mountain, etc. with Moses. That is what he's talking about. For the creation, the material creation, all the planets and the galaxies, waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. To be revealed how? With the image of the heavenly, like Christ was when he went to the Mount of Moses, as we saw in Revelation. For the creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it in hope, that the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom and glory of the children of God. And the point that Paul is making here, out in space, he called it bondage to decay, but there are stars exploding. There are comets flying, whizzing around the place. You have meteorites whizzing around the place. Occasionally they crash to Earth. Some time ago they found a huge one in somewhere in Argentina. Planets get struck with these objects and they leave huge holes. Several years ago, a comet struck Jupiter, and the impact that it left was bigger than the Earth. So you can imagine if it struck the Earth, what would happen to it? Jupiter has a strong gravity, and it trapped the comet, and it pulled it towards it, and as it got pulled, as it neared Jupiter, the comet started to break up in pieces. One piece would fly off and another piece would break up, and they call it the ring of pearls because of what they look like from the distance of the camera. It began to break up, and pieces of it just began flying off because of the power of the attraction of gravity of Jupiter. And each one of them smacked the planets. And they were able to film this, record this on cameras, and it left impressions on Jupiter that are bigger several times than the Earth. So he's saying that the creation will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom and glory of the children of God, even as we get liberated from our bondage to decay, because we grow old, we get sick, we get infirmities, and we die. It says here we are going to be liberated from that when we bear the image of the heavenly. We know the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. And not only the creation that wants to be liberated, it is in figurative language here. I mean, Jupiter doesn't care one way or the other whether it gets struck with a comet or not. But he's making it wasn't intended to be so. That's not the way God intended it to be. That's how it ended up because of the rebellion of the angels. But inasmuch as the universe does not want to have these things happen, it says, we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, we groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for the time when we will be made sons of God. And then have our bodies, the redemption of our bodies. Have our bodies now bear the image of the heavenly. And now having been changed, brethren, to look like the Father and our elder brother Jesus Christ, what will we be doing for eternity? Is this a real thing? The couple asked, is heaven real? Is it a real place? They didn't know. As Paul said, I will not have you to be ignorant. Is it a real place? You know, the gentleman told them about planting gardens and eating watermelons and practicing singing in a heavenly choir. And that is what his mind was able to conjure up. Is that what we're going to be doing, brother? As the Bible says, perish the thought. Here's what God says on the Bible. Let's go to the book of Luke. Luke chapter 1. And let's start from verse 30. Speaking what the Catholics call the Annunciation. The angel said unto Mary, fear not, Mary, for thou hast found favor with God. And behold, you shall conceive in your womb, and bring forth a son, and you shall call his name Jesus. And he shall be great, shall be called the Son of the Highest. And the Lord God shall give unto him the throne of his father David. And he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever. And of his kingdom there shall be no end. No end. What is he going to be doing? Reigning over the throne of Jacob. And let's turn back to Revelation chapter 12. See what this throne of Jacob will involve. Revelation chapter 12. And let's go from verse 4. Speaking here now about something that he saw about the dragon with 10 heads and 10 horns. His tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and it cast them onto the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to devour her child as soon as it was born, referring to the birth of Christ. And she brought forth a man child who was to rule all nations. Lord, this is what Christ was born to do. Rule all nations. There are no nations in heaven. Rule them with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And let's go to chapter 11. Revelation 11. And let's read verse 15. And the seventh angel sounded. And there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world, the nations of this world, are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. Christ is going to rule the nations. So if when you're watching TV or whatever, you hear it, particularly at this time, in the Hallelujah chorus, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ. He's talking about ruling all the nations, not just words of a lyrics burden. So when you hear it, it has a special significance to it. They just hear it and it's just lyrics to the song. And you can take a note of 3:21, Revelation 3:21, where he repeats essentially the same thing. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I overcame, and I am set down with my Father in his throne. That's what he's offering us. If we overcome, he is going to rule all nations, every single one, brother. And he's saying, if you overcome, when you bear the image of the heavenly, I am going to give you power over the nations, and you will sit with me in my throne. Let's turn back to Matthew chapter 19. Matthew chapter 19. And let's drop down to verse 27. Then Peter said unto him, the Christ, behold, we have forsaken all and followed you. And you can put yourself here, brother. I have forsaken all to follow Christ. What will I have, therefore? And these are the words of Christ. And Christ said unto them, and he said unto us, verily I say unto you, that you who have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit on the throne of his glory. Now he's dealing now specifically with them. You also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. That is going to be their particular thing. We will be involved with the other nations that are not the 12 tribes of Israel. And verse 29. And every man who has forsaken houses or brethren or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting life. And finally, brethren, let's go back to Revelation 20. Revelation 20. And read verses 4 to 6. Verse 4, he says, and I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, and for the word of God, and who had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads, nor in their hands. And they lived and reigned as the kings, as Christ 1,000 years. Is that real enough for you, brethren? So that the man who wondered whether it was real and what he was given is just more fantasy, that he will be bitterly disappointed. This is the reality, brethren, that God is giving you. From the words of the Bible, go back and read it over again. If you ever have such a doubt, if you are ever uncertain, what is it a real place? Heaven is a real place here, but that's not what Christ is promising us. The real thing he's promising us is to be rulers in a kingdom. But what happens after that, you may ask? Well, just to give you a little insight. Let's go back to Isaiah chapter 51. Isaiah chapter 51. And let's go and read verse 16. Let's go back to verse 15. He says, but I am the Lord your God, who divided the sea, whose waves roar. The Lord of hosts is his name. And I have put my words in your mouth. I have covered you in the shadow of my hand, that I may plant the heavens, and lay the foundation of the earth, and say unto Zion, thou art my people. Remember it says, of his kingdom there shall be no end. The planting that you're going to be doing in the backyard gardens with poinsettias and water. He says, I am going to plant the heavens. Because when he comes down to earth, the earth is going to be no more place where you have plants and stuff. God is going to come in and transform this whole place. It's not going to be the earth we have today. It's going to be a place where the heavenly Jerusalem will reside. But of his kingdom there will be no end. If there's not going to be an end, it means that there are going to have to be other places where he is going to go and set up thrones and probably put life there. Put more people there. Because if everybody are kings, who are you going to rule over? His kingdom will have no end. And that, brethren, is what God is promising us. Not going to heaven to walk around on streets of gold and see whatever sights there is. You get tired of doing that after a while. How many times you can do it? Even if it's 100 and something thousand square miles. You get tired of doing that. God has given us some real work, brother, to be rulers over the nations and to bring the government of God to the world. So, brethren, you don't have to wonder like this couple do. I'm sorry I can't reach them that they can hear this. That is the reality of what God is promising us. So we don't have to wonder, brethren, and to be in doubt or to be uncertain. This is what it is, and God says he's not a man that he should lie, and if he says so, then that is what we should hold on to. And know that That is what it is. I've not listened to the story